So here's a wild fact. Michael Jackson was investigated for the exact same allegation by two completely unrelated families, a decade apart. One time he paid to make the case disappear before it ever reached a jury. The other time it went to a full criminal trial and a jury said not guilty on every single charge. And you'd think that would settle it. Case closed, right? Except 30+ years later, people are still fighting about this. New lawsuits are still active right now in 2026. So let's actually walk through what happened, what was proven, what wasn't, and why this story refuses to stay in the past. Okay, so rewind to 1993. Michael Jackson is arguably the biggest star on the planet, and the 13-year-old named Jordan Chandler, the son of a dentist Jackson had befriended, came forward with abuse allegations against him, reportedly tied to sleepovers at Neverland Ranch. Here's where it gets messy fast. The Chandler family filed a civil lawsuit, not a criminal one initially, though police did open a criminal investigation alongside it. And before it ever went to trial, Jackson's team settled. Reports on the exact number vary a bit, but it's widely cited as somewhere around $20 to $23 million, with a large chunk, reportedly over $15 million, placed directly into a trust for Jordan. Now here's the part that gets left out a lot. That settlement explicitly did not include any admission of guilt. Jackson's legal team made sure the language was clear. He denied any wrongdoing, and settling a civil case is not the same thing as being found guilty of a crime. Jackson himself said publicly that he settled to end what he called a circus, not because he did it, but, and this is important, because it was a civil settlement. No jury ever actually examined the evidence in that specific case. It just ended quietly, which meant the door stayed open for a decade of speculation in both directions. 10 years later, a totally different family enters the story. Gavin Arvizo was a young cancer patient that Jackson had met and reportedly grown close to through the kind of charitable circles he was known for. In November 2003, Arvizo's family came forward with allegations against Jackson, and this time, prosecutors actually filed criminal charges. 10 counts total, centered on allegations of abuse, and several counts alleging Jackson had served alcohol to a minor, plus 1 count of conspiracy, with prosecutors claiming Jackson and associates conspired to keep the family somewhat isolated in order to control the story. That last part alone tells you how wild this case got. The trial ran 14 weeks in Santa Barbara County Superior Court, 40-some witnesses, intense media circus outside the courthouse every single day. And on June 13, 2005, after about 32 hours of deliberation, the jury came back, not guilty on all 10 counts. Multiple jurors said afterward that they simply didn't feel the prosecution had enough physical evidence to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a specific, meaningful legal bar. Not guilty means the state failed to prove its case to that standard. Not necessarily that nothing happened. That distinction matters, and it's part of why both sides of this story still argue today. So by 2005, legally speaking, Michael Jackson had been through the most serious version of this allegation the justice system offers, a full criminal trial, and been acquitted on everything. For over a decade after that, this mostly stayed a closed chapter for a lot of fans. Then in 2019, 10 years after Jackson's death so he couldn't respond, HBO released a documentary called Leaving Neverland. It featured 2 men, Wade Robson, a choreographer, and James Safechuck, a former child actor, both of whom had actually testified in Jackson's defense back in the 2005 trial, saying nothing inappropriate had happened. In this documentary, both men reversed that completely, alleging that Jackson had abused them for years, beginning in early childhood. The Jackson estate strongly denied every claim, called the documentary a tabloid character assassination, and actually sued HBO over it, arguing HBO violated a non-disparagement clause tied to a 1990s concert special contract Jackson had with the network. Now here's where the "is this over" question gets complicated. Robson and Safechuck had actually filed lawsuits against Jackson's companies years before the documentary aired, back in 2013 and 2014. Those suits were dismissed by lower courts in 2017 and 2021. Case closed, everyone assumed. Except, in August 2023, a California appeals court revived both lawsuits, ruling they should not have been thrown out and sent them back toward trial. As of the most recent reporting, attorneys for both men were pushing to get the case to trial, reportedly wanting it resolved before or around the release of Jackson's 2026 biopic. So to be clear about where things actually stand, these are active, ongoing civil lawsuits. Nothing has been proven in court. Nothing has been dismissed for good either. It's unresolved, legally right now, as you're watching this. So here's the tension at the center of all of this. On one side, a criminal jury heard the most serious version of this allegation, with the highest legal burden of proof in the American justice system, and acquitted him completely. That's not nothing. That's the system's strongest possible statement of innocence, not guilty, on all 10 counts. On the other side, multiple accusers across 3 decades, telling versions of a similar story, 2 of whom initially defended Jackson under oath and later said they'd been pressured or too afraid to tell the truth at the time, a claim that itself has never been independently proven either way. Both of those things are simultaneously true and unresolved. The 1993 case never got a jury. The 2005 case got a jury and ended in full acquittal. The Robson and Safechuck claims haven't gotten a jury yet, but they're headed toward one, which is honestly the most accurate way to end this. This isn't a story with a tidy verdict. It's one where the legal record and the public conversation have never fully lined up, and where the next real answer might not come until an actual trial happens. Whatever you personally believe about any of this, here's what's factually true. One criminal jury acquitted him on every count. Multiple civil claims, old and new, allege otherwise. And at least 2 of them are still working their way through the courts right now. Neither of those facts cancels the other one out. If you want the next In the News deep dive, how a man who died $500 million in debt became the highest paid dead celebrity on Earth, that video's linked below. Subscribe if you like shocking stories that happened in the news.